Nerdvengers, what is up? It's Josh. Episode 5 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier is here. I wanted to, in this video, give you my sort of first thoughts, my, I guess, grade for the episode, and also what I thought of all of the different little Easter eggs, teases, and that cameo that happened that, you know, wasn't exactly as cool as Old Man Steve Rogers or Wolverine or Omega Red or all three of them. It was still actually pretty cool and sets up some dope stuff for the future. So let's get into all of this. This episode was definitely emotional. Heavy stuff was talked about and focused on in this episode. Having said that, I do feel like the episode opened with one of the best action sequences that I've seen in this show thus far. And it wasn't just because it was awesome watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier fight John Walker as Captain America, but also because this fight in a lot of ways crystallizes the paths for all of these characters. It sort of personifies their struggles, their drama, their basic conflicts with all the different things that have been thrown at them as characters and where they personally stand and come from. It kind of takes all of that and condenses it down into basically a fist fight. You can see all of their ideals on display as they're beating the crap out of each other, which is fantastic. That is some good ass comic book flavor. Particularly cool in this scene is the fact that we see Sam Wilson trying to help John Walker. I have talked about this many times in the past, but this show is really showing you the fortitude and the character of one Sam Wilson. It's something that Steve Rogers saw in him, and I'm absolutely in love with the callback to the fact that Sam is working with vets when Steve kind of comes up to see him for the first time as a person, as a human being, and it made an impact on Steve, so much so that later on, Steve visits him when he's in need, right? So it's really cool to see that sort of come back here and have Sam's abilities to, you know, empathize with a fellow soldier, to talk someone down, and also help a soldier process through mistakes that they are making. I think there's something to be said for the fact that everybody makes mistakes, but when you're a soldier, sometimes you make those mistakes and it's really bad consequentially. People can die. And in that moment, it was cool to see Sam just trying to de-escalate the situation. He didn't come up there trying to start a fight. He was trying to de-escalate the situation. Again, I was just blown away at the very subtle performance that Mackie turns in this entire episode. It's a lot of great stuff later on, but it all starts anchored in this moment where he really and truly is, in my opinion, trying to help John Walker. It's something that I don't think many people in the audience can do. If you're really angry and just furious and you're just you hate the John Walker character, you might even be upset that Sam is doing that. Well, who does that remind you of? That reminds me of Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers would do things in the movies that I'd be like, man, Steve, you really got to be the Boy Scout every single time. And in some ways, that is who Sam is as well. It's awesome, and I just really felt like not only was the combat amazing at that beginning fight, but it was deep, it was big, it was like the ideals and the character of each character, if that makes sense, being on display and fighting for what was right. Of course, Sam and Buckey coming out on top. Completely awesome. Nice little callback to like ripping the gauntlet off of Thanos, which was kind of interesting. But I love the way that Buckey exits that scene by throwing the shield sort of down at Sam. And there's this sort of unspoken thing, you know what I mean, about that? It's really freaking cool. And then the way Sam looks at the blood on the shield, the stain on the shield, and all the things that he is processing, which again, come more in display later on, absolutely fantastic. Hats off to everybody involved with the show. This was a very, very poignant scene. I think one that a lot of MCU fans will revisit over and over. Now, I want to sort of skip ahead to the Isiah Bradley stuff because that's really the heart of this episode. Sam, in the wake of everything that's going on, now having the shield, he's processing so much. And he decides to personally, by himself, with the shield, go visit Isiah Bradley. And this episode, I mean, I'm just so grateful that they actually did this. I was very fearful, actually, that was all we were going to get of Lumley as Isiah Bradley, and I was like, man, that sucks. Luckily, we got more, and it was fantastic in this episode. If you've ever read Truth, Captain America, Red, White, and Black, or if you're ever aware of that story, you may have heard Malcolm Spellman talk about it leading up to the show. It's such an interesting story. There's a lot of nuance there, but I'll say this. I really, really like the version that is presented in this show, much better than even the comic book. And, you know, Malcolm spoke to this, but he gets a voice. Isiah Bradley actually gets a voice in this scene. But I think one of the things that really makes this scene work for me is the fact that you see Sam, again, just so well adjusted, watching someone's trauma, another soldier for sure, but that's not the only trauma that we're talking about with Isiah. We're talking about racial trauma, right? We're talking about being used, abused, feeling like your entire people have been discarded, have always been mistreated, and the deep pain and anger that comes with that. And you still have Sam, even being a black man and knowing that pain in an intimate way, still looking at it, just trying to understand. He's so well adjusted. He says some stuff to me that was very nuanced. It blew me away, frankly. I think this scene and this writing and this directing, it deserves a lot of credit. Mackie and Lumley in this scene, man, like, wow, they really, really brought it. And for me personally, it just really, really works. Sam, his ability to just look at that and feel that pain, but also sort of decouple it from what the future could be and what he might be able to do, and looking at it in a truly unselfish way. I mean, that's like true grace, man. You know what I mean? Like that's really, really cool. And I really felt as though the show just did an incredible job of nailing that point in particular. And I thought it was awesome. But now, let's talk about John Walker, okay? Because, man, let me tell you, Wyatt Russell has been incredible this entire show. But this episode in particular, whoo, man, he killed it. He killed it. He brought in nuance. He brought in anger. He brought in just subtle notes in the scene when he's with Lamar's parents. For whatever reason, that was the scene that really got me. Now, the moms in that scene, she really brought it. But there was something about the way John was holding strong for them. And, like, you're just starting to understand his side of it. It's not okay, but you understand it. Again, credit to the writers. Credit to the whole team for going there. The show's bold. Whether it's doing it for you or not, you've got to admit the show is bold. It's going there. I thought Walker's performance might have been the strongest in the whole episode. It's incredible. It's incredible. And let's talk about the cameo, okay? The cameo. Of course, it wasn't like Crazy Wolverine stuff like that. By the way, I still think Old Man Steve will show up in episode 6. I'm not giving up hope, and I'm going to continue to make content about it. But let's talk about Elaine. So it ended up being Louise Dreyfus, and she was playing the character. And literally, I had to literally look this up, right? Countessa Valentina Allegra di Fortena, right? She calls her Val, but don't call her Val or whatever, right? So, interesting thing with this character. A lot of potential for this character. She either is just a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. She's literally dated Nick Fury before. That's pretty freaking interesting. Apparently, she's also Madam Hydra at one point. I don't know about all that. I remember Viper being Madam Hydra, but apparently she was actually Madam Hydra. This was probably way back in the day with the Steranko stuff. But an interesting character that I think could lead basically to the formation of the Thunderbolts or some kind of nefarious thing going on within the government. And also, I'll just sprinkle this in there, a little bit of a scroll tease as well, because in Secret Invasion, one of the beginning opening scenes all has to do with this character who at the time has taken over a large part of S.H.I.E.L.D. And this is how Nick Fury essentially first learns of the invasion, but it's also involved with one of the inciting incidents right at the beginning of Secret Invasion. I'll just leave it there. But very cool stuff. So, I mean, I think it was a cool cameo. I wasn't really anticipating anything ridiculous for the female cameo that everybody was talking about. So I wasn't that disappointed. Your mileage may vary there, but there it is. Now, I will say that as much as I loved this episode, and I did love the episode, I still feel as though the 5 hours of content that we have had so far was at the very least marketed incorrectly. I mean, this is not really a buddy cop movie. This show's heavy. I don't know why you didn't just market it as being heavy, really heavily dealing with the racial issues, with all of the trauma, with all of these things like that, because that is what the show is. I frankly think a lot more people would be like okay with the way that the pacing has gone if Marvel wasn't out here trying to make us think that this was like, you know, an action thriller spy thing. The amount of action has been pretty sparse, guys. It's very, very character driven, like grounded stuff. It's a lot of like therapy scenes. It's a lot of trauma and stuff like that. Again, I like it, but frankly, I am missing my action. I mean, this action sequence was dope at the beginning of this episode, but man, I heard this show had a $155 million budget. Where is that budget? How long is the 6th episode? And are we going like hard on this action? Or did you spend all of the budget on those weird flying squirrel suit animations? Because God, I hope not. I also think Zemo being taken to the raft by the Dora Milaje and his whole scene with Bucky was dope. And it kind of just makes me think that Zemo's playing them all. He knows he's going to head back to the raft. The raft is likely where many of the Thunderbolts actually are. And they'll probably all get broken out and go wreak some havoc somewhere. So I thought that was pretty cool. I've been up and down on the show. I'm up on episode 5 and I'm excited for episode 6. But that is it, guys. That's sort of my breakdown and discussion about some of the spoilers and things that were going on in the episode. I liked the episode. You don't have to like the episode. You don't have to like the show, but I would be curious to know how you actually feel. So let us know how you feel about the show and the episode in the comment section below. As I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I will see you in the next video.